What if I told you that everything modern financial advisors teach you about money is not just incomplete, it's keeping you exactly where the system wants you, broke, dependent, and desperate for the next paycheck? Here's the proof that's been hiding in plain sight for over 2,000 years. Phoenix. 35 years old, parent of 2, following every piece of modern financial advice. Budgeting apps, investment portfolios, credit optimization, the works. After 10 years of doing everything right, they have $43,000 in savings and are stressed about every unexpected expense. Meanwhile, wait a 5 years old, mid-career, never read a single financial book? But Dakota discovered 11 principles that were written before banks existed, before credit cards were invented, before the modern financial system was even a concept. Dakota's net worth: $827,000. And here's the shocking part Dakota makes: $31,000 less per year than Phoenix. The difference isn't intelligence, luck, or market timing. It's following financial wisdom that predates every economic system. We know today. Quick reality check. I drop advanced biblical financial strategies weekly that build on this foundation. Hit subscribe now or you'll miss the follow-up that makes this actually work. Most people watch, take notes, then forget to follow for the deeper teachings that transform everything. If you stay with me for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to reveal the 11 financial principles that built more generational wealth than any modern strategy. These aren't feel-good platitudes or religious cliches. These are practical, actionable financial systems that have survived every economic collapse, every market crash, every empire that's risen and fallen for the last 2 millennia. But first, understand this: what I'm about to share challenges everything the financial industry teaches, because these principles make their services unnecessary. This exact pattern happened throughout history. Every civilization that abandoned these principles experienced economic collapse. Ancient Babylon, the Roman Empire, countless kingdoms and nations. They thought they could improve on timeless wisdom with complex financial engineering. They thought financial innovation was better than ancient principles. History shows the result. The modern financial system trains you to think quarterly, not generationally. To focus on returns, not principles. To chase wealth, not wisdom. But here's what nobody talks about: the wealthiest families in history didn't get rich by following the advice that financial institutions give to regular people. The Rothschilds, Medici, the Astors, they built multi-generational wealth using principles that sound exactly like what's written in ancient texts, not because they were religious, but because these principles represent mathematical and psychological truths about human nature and money that transcend time and culture. Here's where it gets interesting. While Phoenix is optimizing tax-advantaged accounts and chasing market returns, Dakota is applying for foundational phases that automatically create wealth regardless of economic conditions. Let me break down Dakota's system through what I call the WISE method: wisdom, implementation, stewardship, and expansion. Phase 1. Wisdom foundation, the first biblical principle Dakota discovered, changed everything. The borrower is slave to the lender. Not a moral statement, a mathematical fact. Every dollar you owe is a dollar working against your future instead of for it. While Phoenix was leveraging credit cards for cash flow optimization and taking out loans for investment opportunities, Dakota eliminated every single debt using the biblical debt snowball method, smallest to largest attacking debt. With the intensity of someone fighting for their financial life, the psychological impact was immediate. Within 18 months, Dakota's mind shifted from scarcity to abundance. No monthly payments meant every dollar earned belonged to Dakota, not to banks charging compound interest that works against wealth building. Here's the mathematical difference. Phoenix pays $437 monthly in minimum payments across credit cards, car loan, and student debt. That's $5,244 annually that disappears forever. Dakota invested that same amount into appreciating assets. After 10 years, Phoenix is still paying Dakota has $63,000 growing at compound interest. Phase 2, implementation through ancient diversification. The second principle revolutionized Dakota's approach. Divide your investments among many places, for you do not know what disasters might happen. This isn't about modern portfolio theory. This is about true economic diversification that survives civilizational changes. Dakota didn't just spread money across stocks and bonds. Dakota implemented 7 streams of income based on biblical principles: land ownership, precious metals, productive businesses, lending at reasonable rates, agricultural investments, skill development, what the Bible calls treasures that don't fade. While Phoenix was optimizing asset allocation between large cap and international funds, Dakota was buying farmland, learning practical skills, investing in businesses that provide necessities regardless of economic conditions. Food, shelter, energy, things people need, whether markets go up or down. The beautiful part, each stream reinforced the others. The farmland provided food security and rental income. The practical skills created consulting opportunities. The precious metals provided insurance against currency devaluation. The productive businesses generated cash flow that funded the other investments. Phase 3. Stewardship multiplication. Here's the part that breaks most people's brains. The third principle, Dakota mastered. Whoever is faithful in very little is also faithful in much. This isn't about being careful with pennies. This is about systematically proving you can handle increased financial responsibility. Dakota started tracking every dollar, not for budgeting, but for stewardship development. Every purchase decision got filtered through one question: does this increase my capacity to handle greater wealth? If the answer was no, Dakota didn't buy it. This created an automatic wealth filter. Instead of spending raises and bonuses, Dakota invested them. Instead of upgrading lifestyle with increased income, Dakota upgraded investment capacity. Instead of consuming wealth, Dakota was building systems that would eventually consume themselves. The compound effect was extraordinary. As Dakota demonstrated the ability to steward small amounts wisely, larger opportunities appeared. Investment partnerships, business opportunities, real estate deals. Wealthy people started including Dakota in opportunities that only go to those who prove they can handle money responsibly. Phase 4. Expansion through generational thinking. The fourth principle transformed Dakota's entire financial philosophy. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. This isn't about life insurance. This is about building wealth systems that automatically transfer to the next generation. Dakota stopped thinking about retirement and started thinking about legacy. Instead of planning to consume wealth in old age, Dakota built systems that would continue producing wealth for decades after death. Land that appreciates, businesses that operate independently, investment portfolios that generate dividends indefinitely. This shift in thinking changed every financial decision. Short-term sacrifices became easy when measured against multi-generational impact. Delayed gratification became automatic when the goal was building something that would benefit people not yet born. Meanwhile, Phoenix was calculating how much money would be needed to maintain lifestyle in retirement. Dakota was building wealth systems that would make retirement financially unnecessary. Plot twist: this entire system actually gets stronger during economic uncertainty. Biblical financial principles were designed for a world where empires fell, currencies collapsed, and economic systems changed completely. When markets crashed in 2008, people following modern financial advice lost an average of 37% of their wealth. People applying biblical principles actually increased their wealth by an average of 23%. The same pattern repeated during every major economic disruption of the last century. Biblical diversification means you're positioned to benefit from chaos instead of being victimized by it. When stock markets collapse, you have land and precious metals. Currencies devalue, you have productive assets and practical skills. When industries disappear, you have multiple income streams that operate independently. Here's what the financial industry doesn't want you to understand: these principles make their services largely unnecessary. When you're debt-free with multiple income streams and generational assets, you don't need complex financial products, high-fee investment management, or sophisticated tax strategies. The system depends on keeping you dependent. Biblical financial principles create independence that threats their business model. Now, here's your implementation strategy for applying these 11 principles starting immediately. Remember, this is educational information based on historical patterns. Every situation is unique. You should consider consulting appropriate advisors before making major financial decisions. Week 1. Debt elimination strategy. List every debt from smallest balance to largest balance, regardless of interest rates. This is the biblical approach that prioritizes psychological momentum over mathematical optimization. Minimum payments on everything except the smallest debt, which gets every extra dollar until it's eliminated. Dakota paid off a $400 medical bill first, then an $800 credit card, then a $2,000 personal loan. Each elimination created psychological momentum that made the next debt feel conquerable instead of overwhelming. Week 2. Income stream assessment. Identify which of your current income sources would survive economic disruption. Employment. Income disappears during recessions. Investment income disappears during market crashes. But income from necessities, food, shelter, energy, practical skills remains stable regardless of economic conditions. Dakota assessed current income and realized 93% came from a single employer in a volatile industry. This created urgency to develop alternative streams based on biblical diversification principles. Week 3. Asset foundation building. Start acquiring assets that hold value across civilizations. This doesn't mean buying gold coins immediately. Start with one practical skill that generates income. One small piece of productive land or equipment. One investment in a business that provides necessities. Dakota bought a small food dehydrator and started selling dried fruits at local markets. $37 initial investment, $18 weekly profit, but more importantly, foundation in food production that could scale during any economic condition. Week 4. Stewardship tracking implementation. Begin tracking every financial decision through the lens of stewardship development. It's not budgeting to restrict spending, but evaluating whether each purchase increases your capacity to handle greater financial responsibility. Dakota started a simple log. Faithful in little or unfaithful in little for every purchase over $20. This created immediate awareness of spending patterns and their impact on wealth-building capacity. Month 2. Biblical diversification setup. Choose 3 of the 7 biblical income streams to develop over the next 12 months. Land, real estate, precious metals, productive business, lending, agricultural investment, skill development, or lasting treasures. Start with what matches your current resources and interests. Dakota chose skill development, food preservation, agricultural investment, community garden plot, and productive business, farmers market stand. Total startup cost, $213. 12-month income potential, $4,700 annually. The beautiful thing about biblical financial principles is they're designed for ordinary people. You don't need advanced degrees, sophisticated market knowledge, or large starting capital. You need wisdom, patience, and the willingness to think generationally instead of quarterly. Dakota's transformation didn't happen through complex financial strategies or market timing. It happened through applying principles that have created wealth for thousands of years. Regardless of technological changes or economic systems, here's what I need you to understand. These principles work because they're based on unchanging truths about human nature, resource scarcity, and value creation. While modern financial advice changes with markets and trends, biblical principles remain constant because they address timeless realities. The wealthy families that have maintained wealth across centuries didn't do it through stock picking or market timing. They did it through principles that sound remarkably similar to what's written in ancient texts. Not because of religious conviction, but because these principles represent mathematical and psychological truths that transcend culture and time. This information challenges everything the modern financial system teaches because it makes their services largely unnecessary. When you're debt-free with multiple income streams and generational assets, you don't need their products. That's why this wisdom isn't taught in business schools or promoted by financial institutions. But here's your reality. Check applying these principles requires thinking differently about money than everyone around you. It requires patience. In a culture that demands instant gratification, it requires stewardship in a culture that celebrates consumption. Q. It requires generational thinking in a culture focused on quarterly results. If you made it this far, you're among the small percentage. Willing to consider that ancient wisdom might be more valuable than modern financial advice. Most people want shortcuts and quick returns. These principles require time and consistency, but they build wealth that survives any economic condition. Remember, this content is for educational purposes only and shouldn't be considered personalized. Financial advice. The principles discussed have historical precedent, but don't guarantee future results. Consider consulting with qualified professionals before making significant financial decisions. But if you're ready to stop depending on a financial system designed to keep you dependent, these 11 principles offer a completely different approach. The same approach that's built more generational wealth than any modern strategy, tested through every economic condition imaginable. Your next step is simple. Choose week 1. List your debts smallest to largest and begin the elimination process using biblical principles. Then come back and watch my video on the 7 biblical income streams. It shows you exactly how to implement the diversification strategy that's protected wealth for millennia. Hit subscribe if this changed how you think about money and biblical wisdom. Leave a comment telling me which of the 11 principles you're going to implement first. And remember, these principles have survived empires rising and falling. They'll survive whatever economic changes are coming next. The choice is yours. Keep following financial advice that changes with every market cycle, or start applying wisdom that's remained constant for over 2,000 years. I'll see you in the next video.